New ones with Nikki, a lot of nitty gritty. Guys, I'm very concerned because possibly one of my most important videos is not getting watches and views, and I know why. It's a sort of a mindset thing. Guys, the reality is there's an unemployment crisis in South Africa. We have so many graduates with so much potential. And we have an education crisis as well, right? But capable people have been taught to think in these little blocks. They think in these little boxes, and they don't know how to think outside of that. And so a lot of people's apathy and their discouragement, it's a concept called learned helplessness, right? Learned helplessness is if you have an animal, right, and you tie him down for most of his life, eventually he's not going to get up because of learned helplessness. And I made this video hoping to address learned helplessness. Let's actually look at a video on learned helplessness, and then I'm going to give you my suggestion. I'm not your fairy godmother, so it's not like the biggest solution ever for every unemployed person ever. It's not going to be an easy ride. But guess what? You know what else is not easy? Unemployment. You know what else is not easy? Sitting with your child at home when they have nobody to support them, right? And not knowing what's going to happen to them. That's not easy. And so you can choose your heart. And I'm not suggesting this business model. Okay, by the way, I'm suggesting it just for your sake, not for anything that I might necessarily benefit, right? But if you do nothing, nothing will happen. So I just wanted to share this idea with people who are used to thinking with blinders on. There are so many townships and villages in this country that could be empowered by this if people would just take initiative. Okay, so let's first learn what is learned helplessness. I do think it is a massive part of the South African psyche, particularly the South African poor.
Felt helpless? This can be one of the most painful feelings ever to experience. Helplessness is more than just sadness. It's the feeling that you can't change your negative situation and that you might be stuck feeling that way for a long period of time. Shaking off helplessness feels like an uphill battle. Even if you have your friends and family who want to help you, you might express your feelings only to hear things like this: "You can do it. Don't be so down on yourself. Just give it a try." Unfortunately, the feeling of helplessness is a belief that you can't do it. This belief may be so strong that trying to believe anything else would seem absolutely ridiculous. Even though your friends and family have good intentions with their encouraging words, the words don't stick. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how people find themselves in a situation where they feel helpless. We'll also look at a few key studies in psychology surrounding something called helplessness. There's actually science behind the way that we talk to ourselves and develop a feeling of helplessness. Throughout this video, you'll learn that we have the power to develop a belief that we actually can't control our destiny, but we also have the power to develop a belief that we can and will control our destiny. And that is what the theory of learned helplessness is all about.
I share this video with you not to slap you or tell you you're not doing enough. Many of you have done more than enough. Okay? The South African psyche and the South African infrastructure is designed in such a way to keep many people in mental chains. Okay? And no one's coming to save you. There are no fairy godmothers. Okay? There's no guardian angels. So you can stay down there. You can. Or you can realize that you are defined not by how many times you fell down, but by how many times you get up. It's your get up game. Okay? Sometimes those challenges are there to develop the character that you need to move forward. So I'm going to encourage you not even to get up yet, just to listen to a new idea. Okay?
The theory of learned helplessness was developed in the 1960s at the University of Pennsylvania. Graduate student Martin Seligman, one of my favorite psychologists, was conducting an experiment on dogs when he noticed that they seemed, helpless. They were given a very simple task, but many had given up on even trying. What caused this helplessness in these dogs? Were certain dogs helpless, or were all dogs at risk for learning this helplessness? His experiment consisted of 3 groups of dogs. The first set of dogs was the control group. The second set were given shocks, but were given the ability to turn off the shocks with a simple action. In the third set, were given shocks without any way to turn off the shocks. So the second set of dogs had control over their shocks. They could push a button and they could stop getting shocked. The third set had no control over their shocks. Imagine what this taught the dogs about their ability to control the environment and remove themselves from a bad situation. Not surprisingly, the third set of dogs learned a feeling of helplessness, that they couldn't change their situation. After the initial exposure to the shocks, the dogs were given a second set of shocks. In order to stop the shocks, all the dogs had to do was just walk to the other side of the room. Just a few steps could stop these new shocks. The second set of dogs, the ones who could actually control the shocks the first time, were significantly more likely to simply just walk across a room and stop the shocks. What's more important is that they were significantly more likely to actually try to stop the shocks. However, the third set of dogs, the ones who originally had no control over whether or not they got shocked, were much more likely to literally sit down and just accept the shocks. How
Do you get that? So they took these dogs, they electrocuted them. Group 1 could control whether or not they got electrocuted. If they push a button, they can control it. The other group couldn't control it. Then they put them in different circumstances. All of them could have controlled it by just walking away. The group that had never been taught that they had any control just lay there. They just lay there helplessly.
often are we as humans like those dogs? We just sit down and let bad things happen to us. Well, the dogs weren't helpless because they weren't able to control their situation. They felt helpless because they believed they couldn't control the situation. The idea is that I am helpless.
I'm sorry, uncle. I'm sorry, please say that again. They weren't helpless because they couldn't control the situation. It's because they believed they couldn't control their situation. Okay? And there's a reason they believed this. We can't blame the dogs for thinking like this.
Well, the dogs weren't helpless because they weren't able to control their situation. They felt helpless because they believed they couldn't control the situation. The ideas that I am helpless or nothing I do can fix my situation are based in your beliefs. At the root of learned helplessness are beliefs that you are out of control and that you do not have power to make changes. Just like the dogs in those experiments, we too, as humans, can develop the feeling of helplessness through our own beliefs. But let's dig a little bit deeper. How do you create these beliefs? Let's say...
Before we get to that, so if you are feeling helpless, I come with no blame. I understand why you feel that way. I have compassion for you. I hope you can have compassion for yourself. It's okay to feel exhausted and tired and tedious. But I'm trying to speak to the one seed in you that wants to get up one more time. Just one more step. Do you know what I mean?
You're an aspiring singer, but you hold on to a limiting belief that says you might not be very talented. Deep down, you truly believe that maybe you won't make it big. But you fight this belief by entering a singing contest. And during the singing contest, you start to compare yourself to all the other contestants. You tell yourself that they are more talented and that you don't even stand a chance against them. When it comes time for the judges to pick a winner, you don't even place. When you get home, you tell yourself that you're not a good singer. You use the failure of your loss to justify these beliefs. The more you reflect on that singing contest, you use it as...
I did not expect that. That's one of my limiting beliefs, that I can't sing. Yo, you hit me with my own stick, oh, yeah.
as evidence to tell yourself that you're not a good singer, and the stronger that belief comes. Before you know it, you are so set in your belief that you quit singing altogether, even though you love it. Let's take a step backwards and look at the facts. Does the result of one singing contest automatically mean that the people who didn't place were bad singers? Not necessarily. Are there successful singers who have lost contests or even have been told that they weren't very good? Absolutely. Do singers have more than one shot to enter a contest and prove their worth as a great singer? Of course. In this situation, the singing contest is similar to the first set of shocks in Seligman's experiment. You experience a failure, aka losing the contest or getting shocks, and you felt like you couldn't control the outcome. When you face another opportunity in the future to overcome that failure, like the second set of dogs, or maybe it's another singing contest, you assume that you have no control over the outcome and you just sit down. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. We see the way that our failure leads to helplessness, which ultimately leads to more failure. But the subsequent failures aren't because the helpless person isn't good enough, or can't control the outcome of the situation, the subsequent failures come from the belief that they can't even control the situation and the feeling of learned helplessness. So, I've got a test for you. Now that you can see the cycle of failures, feeling of helplessness, and more failures, do you actually have control over your ability to break that cycle? Take a minute to think about this. Seligman introduced the world to the theory of learned helplessness in one of his best-selling self-help books of all time, Learned Optimism. Optimists, or people who are less likely to be affected by learned helplessness, are likely to say, yes, you can break the cycle and prevent failures.
Okay, let's learn more about learned helplessness from elephants, because this is the one that totally gets to me. Okay?
What is learned helplessness? Well, in India, when elephant trainers catch a baby elephant, they tie its legs with a rope to a post. And this baby elephant will struggle for days trying to break free, and it eventually gives up when it learns that it's useless. When it grows up, these trainers keep it tied using the same rope. And even though it's now strong enough to break free and escape, the elephant stands around waiting for the trainers because it's learned that it's meaningless. This elephant has developed what's known as learned helplessness. And this is the fact that despite having the power to change its situation, it's learned to feel helpless instead because of the past. It was identified by scientists in the 1960s who do the same thing by shocking dogs. Highly unethical, of course. But what does this have to do with us? Well, in your life, you may have experienced a crushing defeat and learned that there's just no way to overcome it. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe that's just a story you've told yourself. Just think about it. If the average person does poorly on a test, they'll say the professor was too hard a marker. Whereas a clinically depressed person will blame themselves for not being smart enough. In both cases, the moment you give up, you've learned to be helpless of the situation. So in what ways has learned helplessness affected you?
Okay. You are not helpless. Okay? So guys, it is my dream to be a life coach, actually. I'm still studying for it. So I need to practice on some students just totally for free, with life coaching, because I've had life coaches really impact my life. It's just someone who looks at your belief and asks you questions that make you go, you just kind of rethink. They kind of challenge you. And a life coach is not here. It's not like a therapist. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make you uncomfortable. Kind of, how a coach, when you're swimming, makes you do another lap, or kind of gives you a hiding. So if you did ever hire me as a life coach one day in the future, I wouldn't be the person that you're like, yay, let me go see her. You'd be like, you're hiring someone to give you a hiding, really. Okay, so you know what? I'll put a link in the description. Fill out the form. Let me know if you'd be willing to practice with me as a life coach, because I want to practice being a life coach, so it's not going to be perfect, but hopefully we can help each other out. But what I really wanted to help you with was an industry that I'm very passionate about, and that is homeschooling. I'm also not proposing homeschooling as the most perfect solution to everything, but I want to encourage South Africans to incline their mind to consider it. It is easier to start than you think, but it is something for which we need professional teachers. And how many teachers are sitting there unemployed at home or unsatisfied with their job, right? And they're not starting a homeschool center when they're homeowners, right? How many graduates are sitting there that could be tutors employed there to tutor the high school kids in accounting, in maths, in drama, in all these other things, right? But no one's taking initiative because they believe that there's no point. They don't even know the solution is out there. So I interviewed a lady, a very dear friend of mine, okay, who opened her own homeschool center. She's willing to train other people in homeschooling. Like literally, she's willing to drive to your house, maybe help her with petrol or something, or help her get a plane ticket there, and show you physically how to do it. If you're willing to kuzat, to do something, you are amazing, guys. When it's time to make a stokvel, you know how to do it. So we're sitting here with uneducated kids and with educated people that don't have a job, but those people have forgotten the narrative of ownership. They've forgotten that they're allowed to own stuff. People who once owned this land, people who once, had their names ripped away from them, had their sense of ownership taken away from them. Guys, you do have potential. Okay? So I put up this video, which to me is the most important one on my channel. okay, about homeschooling in South Africa, and she explains the logistics of it so carefully. And I want to go and suggest that you watch it, whether it inspires you to start your own thing and you just WhatsApp her for advice, or you can start with one student. And I promise you it's not going to be an easy ride. I promise you it's going to be difficult. I promise you you're going to face hurdles. Aren't you facing them already though? Isn't it difficult not to have groceries already though? Right? But what if you can? What if a little bit of research, what if the data you're using to watch my video is better used to help fix your little street, in your little township, in your little community, in your little village? What if you could provide better education than a big school does, because you are able to give individualized attention to kids? What if you could save parents petrol money because the children in your street are coming to your homeschool center? What if? I'm not promising you're going to get it right, but I promise you that if you do nothing, you're going to get it wrong. Okay, babe, I hope this has reached you at the right moment. I hope it's planted the right seed. This has been Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty, even if it's not pretty. If you do like and subscribe to my channel over here, we have adult conversations over here. I swear a lot and I'm just myself. So it is what it is. But please like and subscribe for challenging new ideas. I've got a very weird mind. I'm not always right, but at least I help you look at stuff from a different angle. Okay, I love you. Chin up, tits forward, and maybe, just maybe, you can make a change, and I hope you do. Okay, guys? See you soon.